Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, I hope you and your families are well and honored to be with you all. Thank you so much for giving out of your precious time to be with us in this journey of knowledge and inquiry when it comes to understanding the sacred tradition of Futuwwah and what is it to be a sacred man and a sacred woman. I want to thank Sister Fatima and Brother Shoaib for facilitating and coordinating all the things related to the halaqah and to the study circle. I really appreciate your khidmah and may Allah accept it from you. I also want to thank Sister Dania, Sister Mediha, and rest of the Futuwwah Academy and ISIP team for the excellent work that they're doing. Today, we're going to read the chapter about good conduct towards our parents, inshallah. So without any further ado, I think we'll start the reading once more. And just let me share my screen. All right. So today's topic, as you guys know, because you guys have, I'm sure, already read the chapter, is about good conduct towards parents. And it's a very small but yet concise and important topic indeed when it comes to the embodiment of Futuwwah and how to be sacred in your masculinity and femininity. So who would like to start reading? Somebody that feels, nobody who would like to read? All right, Sister Asfia, please go ahead.
Brother, I've got a little cold, so you have to bear with my voice.
Allahu Akbar. May Allah give you shifa, inshallah, sister. Let me read for you
Amen.
then. I can read for you,
Okay,
inshallah. I'll make it
sure.
easy for you. All right.
Amen.
So, good conduct towards parents. One of the most vital duties of the fatah is to fulfill the rights due to his parents, followed by his close kin, especially the elders among them. The path of sacred manhood necessitates showing respect and kindness towards one's parents and elders. Allah Azza wa Jal stated in Surah Al-Nisa, verse 36, and worship Allah and associate none with Him, and have excellent behavior towards your parents, close kin, orphans, the poor, near and distant neighbors, close friends, wayfarers, and bond people in your possession. Surely Allah does not love whoever is arrogant, boastful. Furthermore, Allah Azza wa Jal said in the 23rd and 24th verse of Surah Al-Isra, and your Lord has decreed that you do not worship any except Him, and to parents excellent treatment. Whether one or both of them reach old age while with you, say not to them so much as oof, and do not repel them, but speak to them a noble word, and lower to them the wing of humility out of mercy, and say, my Lord, have mercy upon them, as they brought me up when I was young. Imam Zayd ibn Ali, radiallahu anhu, said, and the right of Allah pertaining to good conduct towards one's parents is to treat them excellently and with kindness. For Allah knows that even if something as significant as oof is said, He has prohibited such words from being said to them. All right, dear brothers and sisters. I guess for all of us as Muslims, this is one of the core tenets of our beliefs, the way that we treat our parents, and in particular our mothers, but obviously our fathers and also grandparents and the elderly. So I want to open up for some text reflections here. Do we or do you guys see any problems in the younger generation when it comes to the attitudes towards the elders? That is the first reflection that I have. Have we been influenced by some non-Muslims' perspective when it comes to intergenerational connection. What I'm noticing in the West is that the youths and also the children are quite distant in relationship towards their parents and the elderly. It's not the same sacred relationship. It's not the same respect and acknowledgement, unfortunately. I also notice sometimes that some parents rather want to be friends, quote unquote, with their children rather than being parents. And I'm very interested to hear your reflections with regards to these dilemmas. Should we be friends? What does that mean? Does that take away the sacred hierarchy? And when we speak about hierarchy, are we speaking that it should be obedience, or should it be more like compassionate connection between the parents and the children? Which type of methodology and pedagogy shall we use in the tarbiyah? Are we using more like a guiding, pedagogical guidance, or is it more, straightforward? What is the difference between authority and being authoritarian? So these are some of the questions that maybe we can reflect together. Any thoughts?
लाइट जलाओ और पानी गिराओ.
Any thoughts, dear brothers and sisters? Please raise your digital hands. I personally think that it's a balance in many ways. Definitely, it needs to be a sacred connection. We need to understand the authority of our parents and the elderly and the seniors. Next week, we're going to read the chapter about how to respect your teachers and the shuyukh and the ulama. At the same time, I think that it's also on our roles as parents to be very pedagogical, to be very compassionate oriented, and to, yes, we do have authority, but we're not authoritarian. Because authoritarian is the aspect of the Firawic approach, which will not benefit our children or ourselves either. So that is one thought that came to my mind when I was reflecting while reading this chapter. Any thoughts from you guys? Brothers and sisters, are you guys shy today? Usually we have so many people raising hands.
Yeah, can I speak?
Yes, please raise your digital hand so I can see your.
Is it Assalamu alaikum? Is it only for sisters, brother, or even I can share my inputs as a father?
This is for everyone, brother. Our study circle is for both brothers and sisters. So please, what's your name, brother?
My name is Shahab.
Brother Shahab, welcome. Yes. Please share your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, it's a very complex topic.
Yeah.
So I was actually as a father, I think a lot of things. For everything, the beginning is very important. Number one. Number two, we are, as humans, we are created. Of course, we are similar. At the same time, we have differences in how we approach things in life, which includes, on the basis of different factors, which are some are visible, some are not visible to the open eye, and so I think as a parent, it starts much early. If the child is compassionate about his or her parents, there is more likelihood that the child will become a very compassionate parent also. When and that is that has been observed also. So there are a lot of things that you observe while growing up. When you see a child, you can observe and you can kind of predict the behavior. But unless until, of course, there are a lot of sometimes a lot of environmental factors and things, some disruptions happens which definitely affect the child, but the inherent fitra remains the same. So I think it has a lot to do with what you're born with, and plus if there are some gaps, then it can be trained. But then this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has distributed his rizq, among us. Some are given something more, something less, so there's a balance. But I think if we look at the bottom line, it's I'm only specific about parenting. Of course, there are a number of things that a human do, which is good work, that we do, not only just parenting. But I'm just specific to parent. You can see while the child, whether it's girl or a boy, when they're growing up, you can see, what type of parent they're going to be. So a lot of inherent things exist in all of us by birth, which actually culminates into what type of parents we become. But then the efforts that you are doing, and there are many other people who are working on training people to be good parents, that also affects, that also has a role in the event if there are some gaps.
Yeah, mashallah, brother Shahab. I really appreciate it. Appreciate it. Great insights and great reflections. And thank you for joining us, brother. It's the first time I heard your voice. I'm very glad to have you with us. Yes, I agree. It's an important topic indeed. And I think that from the perspective of the intergenerational point, there is so much sacred knowledge that we can gain from the elders that I feel like we're losing connection to. I almost want to propose an idea to all of you, dear brothers and sisters, that we should record our grandparents and our parents, histories and experiences and, life challenges and wisdoms, that they have. They are still connected to fitra in a way that maybe our generation is not, because we're so immersed into this digital era. We're so immersed into technology, and the whole notion of storytelling is getting away. And also the way that our grandparents and our elderly used to play when they were young, they used their imagination in so different ways than what we are doing. So we need to preserve our tradition through our elderly's, stories and lived experiences. And today we have digital tools. We can record them. We can, make, mini documentaries. So this is something that I think could be a beautiful contribution that we can do collectively and preserve these stories, to the next generation. I think it will be very valuable. Yeah, so yes, thank you, brother. Any other reflections? Yes, Sister Mahmouda, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Yes, I totally agree about what you said, is that we should document whatever our grandparents and those things, those generations did, and how nicely and fairly they brought our parents up, and how they have, inculcated so many traditions. There were everybody has some wrongs and some vices, but still I feel that that generation had so much to share and so much to be connected with each other, that they knew how to hold the ties of kinship. They knew how to, bring up the children, and they used to have a lot of children. It was not like that in today's society. We're not having so many children as they used to have, and they used to manage everything very, very nicely and profoundly. Alhamdulillah. And yes, today's generation is disconnected from the reality of the world. They feel that they have their own individuality, which definitely comes from the West. And they feel that they should be treated as an individual, not as family ties and everything. They see it as a secondary thing. The first thing they think about is individuality, my individuality. And somewhere and somewhat we have got this from the Western culture and Western studies and whatever we are into. So these are the things that I wanted to, bring it up and reflect upon.
MashaAllah. I agree with you 100%, Sister Mahmouda. Thank you for sharing your excellent feedback, because this individuality thing, Islam is the deen of fitra and the deen of mizan. It's the deen of balance. So we cater to the individual and the collective at the same time. And ultimately, the individual is submitted and it's under the submission of something higher, which is the transcendental levels in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ultimately, right? So the individual has a role in Islam, right? But it's also collective, right? And I think that we're living in a very materialistic liberal era. And this liberal materialism is affecting our conscience and our psyche in different ways. So here we almost speak about individuation as a way of disconnecting from sacred bonds and sacred ties. It's me, myself, and I, which is an old hip hop song, by the way. Me, myself, and I. So it's me, myself, and I, rather than we, and ultimately the highest, which is Allah, right? And in there, it's like my boundaries, my feelings, my emotions, my needs, my. And it becomes very anthropocentric, which is like human centric, right? What we should say instead is it's Allah's body that I have the honor as an amana to facilitate. So the boundaries with regards to this is the boundaries that Allah states, right? So Allah is in charge. Allah puts the boundaries to me, myself, and I, whether it's my emotions, my feelings, my body, my notions, my activities, etc., right? So that is where we can see today that due to the normalization of liberal ideologies that we have brought into even our own psyche subconsciously and consciously notions of eyes, which is very much dunyawi and very much on a worldly realm, and it is very much feeding to the nafs rather than having this connection to something sacred and even respecting the elders as something sacred. It's almost like you're giving yourself ta'alim, you're giving yourself tarbiyah, to break your nafs by respecting others in itself. You understand that there are hierarchies. It doesn't mean that the one that is over you in the hierarchy needs to dominate you. It doesn't mean that your parents needs to dominate you. And ultimately, Allah judges us by our piety rather than our, status. Nevertheless, it's a way to break your nafs as a way to submit yourself to something higher. And ultimately, we all submit ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these type of sacred relationship is disconnected and disintegrated from modernity based upon ideologies that are not catering to the fitra. It's not the balance. You have other extremes, by the way, extreme collectivism, which you can find in theories of, communism, for instance, where it's only the collective, the individual should not be seen. That is also very extreme. That's not Islamic at all. So you have two extremes that is affecting us, and Islam brings us to the middle. Yes, the individual is important as part of a bigger construct, which is the collective. Yes, Brother Shoaib, go ahead.
I would like to tell you that this notion is blaming that uh, everything for the blaming everything for to the West, that West is damaging our roots and all. This is very bogus. It is totally, I think, uh, it is not it is unacceptable that every time we blame West and all. So we need to look upon ourselves, our culture, and Satan is always there to deceive you from your path. We need to strengthen our roots, okay? And give the alternative in front of West. Okay, this is the solution. This is not a solution that blaming Western and Western ideologies. It is always there. Satan is always there to deceive you. That's me.
It's a very good point, brother, and I appreciate what you said, and I agree with you, because sometimes we also put the blame on others without taking our own responsibility. And by the way, I think that when we speak about liberal ideologies, it doesn't mean that it just comes from the West. I mean, these ideologies are also stemmed in the East and in the South and in the North and all over the world, even though many of it comes from the cultural hegemony that is the aftermath of colonization, which was something that happened by the Western countries and powers. But your point, which I think is very valid, is that sometimes as Muslims, but also as human beings generally, we blame others rather than taking our own responsibility. And as you rightfully said, Shaitan's waswas is in all corners. You can find them all over. So we need to start working with ourselves.
I,
And
I, uh, I would like to say that if you read Quran, the story of Bani Israel, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always criticized the Muslims there, not that very less about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks very less about the other enemies of Prophet Musa Islam and other prophets. So we need to introspect ourselves. Okay, first of all. And I would like to quote an example of Allama Ibn Hazm. And he's a scholar of early times, and he wrote several books on uh, Islamic ideas, theories, and all, Quran and all. But at the same time, he writes a book called The Ring of the Dove, which based on his personal experiences of love and all. So we need to make sure that teach everything. We need to teach society everything. Like at the same time, we need to teach our Islam, Quran, and all. At the same time, we need to teach that society and how to react, how to live in it with that. So
thank you, Brother Shoaib, for your excellent remarks. We appreciate it. Very valid points. And the point to be taken here is to also work with yourself through introspection. See that you are in a reflection of the macrocosmos. And this is the connection between insan, the human being, and insan al-kabir, the universe, which is something that many of our traditional scholars spoke about in the relationship between the micro and the macro. And in that, we cannot, as you mentioned, only blame the others and blame ideologies, but also we need to understand that we need to work with ourselves, that we have a responsibility to purify ourselves. That's how I'm understanding what you're saying, and I think it's a very valid point, and I appreciate you sharing it. Jazakallah khairan, brother. Yes, Sister Asfiya, go ahead.
Yes, brother. So when it comes to parenting, I feel it's very tricky because parent to parent and children to children, it's kind of different. And often what we try to do is, like, if there is a situation, we try to take experiences from other mothers or other fathers or our friends, for that matter. But what matters here is you need to understand your own child. You need to understand what are their requirements instead of putting on solutions from other parents onto your children, because I feel you should know the root cause of the problems of your own children instead of putting on solutions from others. You need to understand your children in the best possible way, and do not impose your rules and regulations on them. Having said that, without compromising on the Islamic rules and regulations, what the Sharia allows is, you know we need to integrate everything towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because ultimately it is his commands which we are trying to make our children understand. Rather than saying that I want you to do this, I want you not to do this, instead of that, maybe we can try saying that, and this is the command of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala, or this is how it works, this is in the boundaries of Islam and the Sharia. So we need to understand our children in the best possible way. And being friend is, yes, I feel this is one of the safest place, because children, when they come and share things with you, you will at least understand what they are going through. Being a friend with your child is really important, to know what is about their whereabouts and how things are working in their life. I think that is really important. Instead of imposing things on children, it's better to understand them and find a solution which is best possible for them.
MashaAllah, Sister Asfiya. Great remarks. Thank you so much. Excellent remarks. What I take from what you're saying is that it's not about us coming with the regulation. As you say, it's from Allah. So it's beyond us as parents. Ultimately, we are also submitting ourselves to something higher. So that helps us to navigate by actually explaining it's not from me as your parent, it's from Allah. And that you explain rather than just to say submit and do, you explain why this is good, why this is important, as I understand. And also for you, friendship is, and it says connection. I get that. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. That we could be a companion, but still we have authority as well. So it's that balance, perhaps, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because we have other extremes where parents are just like friends with their children, you know, like friends in the sense that there is no differentiation in the roles. And then also in the objective of the roles that Allah has given us, you know. Maybe that is one extreme, but the other extreme is to be fully disconnected, not to at all have any connection with your children, not to have the murabata and the heart-to-heart linking, which I guess it's what you're meaning with this whole aspect of being friends. And that's also an extreme on the other end of the spectrum. And in the middle is what you're saying, Sister Esfia, is to be with your children, be pedagogical towards them, have a connection with them, and that be a companion, and yet you're also there to guide them towards the hidayah that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ultimately. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Asfiya. Great remarks. Let's continue reading a little bit, brothers and sisters. Thank you once more, Sister Asfiya, Sister Mahmouda, Brother Shaib, and also Brother Shahab for your amazing and excellent remarks. So let's read from here, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Anybody who would like to read? Brother Shaib, go ahead, brother. Please go ahead.
The Prophet ﷺ was asked, which deed is most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? He replied, prayer at its appointed time. Then he was asked, then what? He replied, then being good to parents. Then he was asked, then what? He answered, then struggling in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sayyid Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah explained that be good to his parents means obeying them, preserving good comportment when living with them, or keeping company with them, and taking care of their rights in the correct manner. It is also reported that Prophet ﷺ stated being good to parents is more virtuous than prayer, fasting, Hajj, Umrah, and struggling in the path of Allah. Following this prophetic tradition, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, said, being good to parents is the greatest religious obligation. When Fudail ibn Iyad was asked about the constitutes good conduct towards one's parents, he replied that it is not being too lazy to serve them. In regard to the duties of showing love and keeping company with one's friend, the fatah is to prioritize his mother in accordance to the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Luqman, verse 14. And we have enjoined on the man to be good to his parents. His mother bore him in weakness and hardship upon weakness and hardship. And his wearing is in 2 years give thanks to me and to your parents. Unto me is the final destination.
Jazakallah
Uh,
khairan, brother. Jazakallah khairan, Brother Shaib. Thank you for reading in such an excellent way. So essentially here, we're speaking about certain things. Imam Dawud mentions, for instance, that the Prophet ﷺ said that the most beloved deeds of Allah is one, prayer at its appointed time, two, being good to your parents, and then, of course, struggling in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani explains to be good towards your parents as, and I broke it down into three levels. One, obeying them. Two, preserving good comportment, behavior when living with them or keeping company with them. And the third is to take care of their rights in a correct manner, correct meaning according to Qur'an and Sunnah. And then we know that Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu have said being good to your parents is the greatest religious obligation. And Fudail ibn Iyad, rahimullah, when he was asked about what constitutes good conduct towards one's parents, he replied that it is to not be lazy when you do khidmat towards them, right? So there is a lot of gems here. So shall we reflect together? Like, why is this so important in our deen? To serve your parents, to be good towards your parents, to be generous towards your parents. Why is this such an important religious obligation? Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stated it already, so we already know that's an obligation. But why does Allah state that this is so important? Why does the Prophet ﷺ mention that this is so important? Why does our pious scholars of our tradition say that this is so important? Feel free to reflect, brothers and sisters. I just bring some questions. We can even reframe the questions as well. It's no issues. Sister Kafila, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Actually, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually told us the reason why He wants us to do so much to our parents in terms of service, in terms of good behavioral attitude to them. I feel that was revealed in the Quran where Allah said, these parents of ours, they have suffered, as in they have sacrificed so much for us in weakness, especially the mother bringing forth a child in weakness. When she conceives, she had a whole lot of stress in terms of physical health, depreciation, in terms of emotional disorientation, and so on and so forth, talking about the 9 months and at the time of birth. Some, they might be lucky enough to actually deliver the baby successfully, while some will have complications, while some will eventually answer the call of Allah in the process of actually bringing forth these children. Now, when we now bring them forth, the father will invest, will incur a lot of, what do we call it, debt to make sure that the children or the child grows up fine in terms of education, in terms of feeding, providing basic necessities. All this, I know a lot of parents would rather want their children to have very good things at their own detriment. Parents, they are serving children for them to live, while in the case of the child, she or he is serving the parents, being good to the parents towards their own death, because they cannot live longer. I mean, they are youthful age, they are now old, and they are going back to whom? To Allah, their creator. While they are living, I mean, the parents are sacrificing for these children to live, to grow older, while the the children are serving and doing good deeds to their parents as they are receding in their age. So I think more of the reason might be because of the sacrifices both parents are given to make that child come to life, to actually thrive, to actually become someone that can be independent and serve the ummah as well.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah, sister. Excellent remarks. Thank you so much, Sister Kafila. I agree with you. SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. It's a sacrifice, isn't it? I mean, obviously, I'm not a mother, I'm a father. So I can't even, relate to it, even though I respect it and I acknowledge it and I see it. It's a sacrifice. And ultimately, it's a sacrifice that we as children will always forever be indebted. But then with that said, I mean, we're not going to take away the aspect of the importance of connection as well. Connection when it comes to understanding that the sacrifice that mothers and fathers are doing, in a sense, is for the sake of Allah. Because ultimately, the creation comes from Allah and not us. We're just vessels of Allah. But we do sacrifice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges that specifically towards the mothers. And we will actually reflect upon the prophetic saying that, the path towards Jannah goes through the feet of the mothers. It's a beautiful statement connected to the surah that Brother Shoaib read earlier. In the chat, let's see here. Sister Anum is writing, regarding children feeling distant from the parents today, happens in many ways. Some children see their parents as old-fashioned and not compatible, while some parents seem to think tiger-style parenting is the only way. Both terribly wrong. Only a prophetic balance will work. MashaAllah, Sister Anum, I really appreciate that. Sister Arinola is further reflecting. A lot of children, me included, felt our parents didn't give us a voice while growing, and we were just waiting to be adults to be able to make decisions and just inform them and not necessarily seeking their permission as we had to when our parents were completely in charge. I believe strongly in duty to our parents as Islam teaches. Interesting reflection, sister. So that's the thing. And I think Sister Asfia actually connected to this, that we need to give a voice to our children. It doesn't mean that there is no authority in the relationship between parents and children. It doesn't mean that the children should not respect their parents, but we need to allow them to have a voice so that they can share their feelings, their thoughts, their ambitions, their needs. It's very important. And I think sometimes we as parents, we need to look at, are we bypassing our children or not? We shouldn't bypass them, but we should guide them, and we should guide them accordingly. So this is really yes, brother. Is it Sister Shabina or brother Shahab?
Yes,
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Actually, the dua which says Rabbi ghafir warham, Rabbi arhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira. This is an important dua, first of all. Second is, the hadith which says that the Jannah lies under the feet of your mother. I'd like to have sisters' opinions on this, and of course, even those who are brothers also. What do we understand by that? We've been hearing it since the time we had the ability to understand the language. But what do we really understand by that? I mean, what does that mean exactly? I mean, I have a question. I have my perspective on it, but I'd like to have.
Oh, so you want people's reflections on it. Okay, brother. So yes, sisters and brothers, any reflections about that? It's mentioned also in this chapter, by the way. Imam Dawud is reflecting upon it. I think that this is a reflection, at least, brother, as I understand, that the Prophet ﷺ, he reflected upon, upon this meaning as part of his tafsir of Surah Luqman, verse 14. So that his tafsir of that ayat that Brother Shuaib read was that paradise is under the feet of the mothers. But anybody who would like to share your reflections with regards to that particular hadith? Feel free to write in the chat as well, dear brothers and sisters. Let me see. Let me read in the chat. So Sister Anum is writing, Jannah at the feet of the mother is obedience, respect, and service to her. Will take you to Jannah. Yes. Obedience, respect, service. Sister, yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Sister Khurshid.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Everyone. Yes, I would like to present a few observations. Just that mother doesn't create a child, but definitely the process of the creation takes inside a mother's womb, and she bears pain while going through this process physically. Physically, she bears pain, and every person loves their creation. So a mother always loves a child, but sometimes such certain things happens in the life of the mother that the kids may start feeling that my mother doesn't love me. But that is not the case. We see that Allah has created all of us, and even if we go through any calamity, any stress, it doesn't mean that Allah doesn't love us. Allah loves us. But this is how the world is created. This is the qadr, the measurement of the world that we go through while staying in this world. in this dunya. So what comes to me is that caring of like it is like giving and taking at the same time. A mother gives her love and care to the child, and later in the life, uh, child has to give that back to the mother. So, well, Sheikh Hamza is from, I think it is America, California, or somewhere. Sheikh Hamza is a very renowned person. He is a convert Muslim, uh, and his parents are not Muslim. But once he said that doesn't mean that I don't respect my mothers. I do pray for their guidance, but I respect them. I haven't broken my kinship with them. So that is the case. Yeah? That is a give and take, and so we have to take care of them. And Jannah is for the reason that the mother is has taken care of the child with love and whatever she can give. So that's why Jannah is under the future. I used to think whether Jannah of Sheikh Hamza is under his mother's feet or not. But it is. Listening to his reflections, trying to understand this concept of Jannah being under the feet of a mother, it makes a sense to me.
Yeah.
That is the process of giving and taking with
MashaAllah.
respect, love, and care.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Thank you so much, Sister Sema.
Thank you.
Nice to hear your reflections. Thank you so much. Yes, there is a lot of insights in what Sister Sema said, and I appreciate them. And I think from the aspect that, yes, it's from the feet of the mothers, and that we need to be of service and support and respect and appreciation for all the commitment and all the sacrifice they have done. And ultimately, we wish kindness from our parents as well. I think sometimes the whole aspect of being obedient towards your parents is very important, but then it's also important as parents that we're very kind towards our children, because we have a sacred role. Just because we have authority doesn't mean that we can be firawic. We need to break our nafs as parents as well and see our shortcomings as well. And I speak because I am a father myself, and I have a lot of flaws and shortcomings. And I think part of embodying Futuwwah is to understand your shortcomings. Yes, Allah has given us an authority. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ said that paradise is under the feet of the mothers. But what does that say to us as fathers, or for all of you who are mothers? Is that yes, we have a sacred role, we have authority. We wish that our children shows us love, respect, appreciation, and also listens to us. But at the same time, in that authority, it's an amana. And as a custodian of this amana, I am at service as well, because I need to raise pious children. How do I do that? Is it to enforce things forcefully, or is it to be compassionate and guide and still be directing and have some strictness according to Qur'an and Sunnah? That's the sweet balance. And that's why pedagogy is so important as well. Khair. Thank you, Sister Sema. Sister Anum has written, Sister Kafila has written in the chat, furthermore, as the parents grow older, they become emotionally vulnerable, lonely, and so need more connections with their kids. The tendency is for the kids to also be preoccupied with their own individual lives and nuclear families without remembering their parents. Yeah, this is a very important topic. And this is something that we see, that when we create our own nucleus family, then we might disconnect from our parents. But this is actually something that is culturally specific, I would say. In many cultures, we have intergenerational households. I don't know how it is in your countries, dear brothers and sisters, but generally in many countries, in many cultural contexts, we have intergenerational households. So you never see this children being preoccupied with their own individual lives and nuclear families, because you have an intergenerational household. And I think that's really good. I think if it's possible, we should all have that. But of course, it's not always possible due to different means and reasons. But I think when you have that intergenerational household, then this whole aspect of the nuclear family doesn't become just mother, father, and children. It becomes something wider. And ultimately, as the African proverb says to us, it takes a village to raise a child means that the whole village is actually one unit as well in many ways. Yes, brother Shahab. Is it brother Shahab or is it sister Shamina?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay. So I would change your name, brother. In the chat.
No, it's okay. She is the one who was actually participating in it, but
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
I unnecessarily got into it.
No, I like that you're with us, brother. Please join us every week, brother. We would love to have you with us, inshallah.
I will try, inshallah. Okay.
Jazakallah khairan, brother.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking actually that, the process starts much earlier, I would say. If you look at the girl child, the toys that she plays with, and the boy child, the toys that he plays with, that indicates the future again. Generally the girls, so we should appreciate that. If a boy is playing with the boy's toys and the girl is it's not about, we are not kind of being gender unequal kind of a thing, but the natural um, uh, inclination towards particular activity as a child. So that actually goes a long way when the hadith which says that the Jannah lies under the feet of the mother. It actually leads to that point because the girl child has the it's all about elders, especially the female elders in the family, to observe that the child is on the both male and female elders, that they are on fitra, both the girl child and the boy child. So, but since we are right now specific to this particular uh, aspect, that the Jannah lies under the feet of the mother, so we are focusing on the female part of it. So the girl child plays with the toys. It's a general observation that they play with, with 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 dolls and with small living kind of babies and stuff like that. So they have that inherent um, inclination and the preparation to be mothers as they move forward. And when they grow up on fitra, then of course then comes the time when they have to choose the person who they want to marry. So again, as you were saying that, the kind of relationship parents have with the girl child, because leading to that point where because it's a big thing having 3 degrees over father, number one, and the hadith that the Jannah lies under the feet of the mother. It is like, if we think of it, it's huge, but there is a preparation for it, and we are seeing that there's a huge gap right now. And I'm talking about the general parental interaction with the kids, and both mother and fathers, they are not able to connect with the way they should connect. But mother has a huge role to play, not only individually as a mother, but as a wife, as a sister, as a mother, and as someone who connects the family. Because if I connect surah, the ayah which is used, which is actually recited during nikah, uh, where the surah Nisa, the first ayah itself, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying is that, be aware that I'm um, watching what the rights that you seek from each other. You're doing it under my watchful eyes. So it's talking about rahim, the relationship of rahim. So if I start from a girl child and then growing up into a confident young lady who is now choosing the husband, and then they are starting a family, and that lady is very conscious about being who she is, and she's not only confident, she's taking pride in it to be a mother, and then going through the whole process consciously, and then up to the point where she ended up feeding the child for twice. It's mentioned in the Quran, there are twice. One is 30 months and another one is 24 months of feeding. Of course, again, there could be some biological, or there could be some other issue, but and given all the conditions are in place, once this is done, now actually this process is so I mean, this is so, I would say, spiritually enlightening, that once this is done, I mean, under my observation, and I'm sure many of those who are attending this, the child automatically remains so stable all his or her life, whether she has a boy child or a girl child. This process until the feeding weaning time, if it is done, it brings out a very different human into the world, in terms of his or her uh, psychological balance, physical abilities, intellectual abilities. So I think that is what completes the cycle, I would say. I mean, of course, rest that child will. Now you have brought a very sensible child into the world who's going to benefit the humanity, and of course in the process both parents, the whole family is going to be benefiting. So what I'm trying to say is that when we say Jannah lies under the feet, is there is a process before that happens, before that. uh, uh, we call it as, in some like business terminologies, we can use otherwise also, like there are some lead indicators and there are some lag indicators. So leading indicators is that the child remains on fitra leading up to the marriage, and both, that's why the uh, the girl has a choice. She has to make a choice. Of course we do a formality when the nikah takes place. Generally, the people go to witness and they ask and she says okay, but she has a right to choose, but it's a responsibility. So have if we are able to grow a child, a very responsible, confident Muslima, and when she's making a choice, she knows what she's choosing and she knows what she's going to be doing with as you move forward. So, and that leads to that point of, that Jannah lies under the feet of the mother, because she becomes a mother after going through the whole process, which is,
Yeah.
conscious, So, I mean,
Yeah,
there were a lot of thoughts on it actually. Endless.
mashallah, mashallah. I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and it's interesting. It's very interesting to follow your train of thought, brother. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate it. So, in a sense, as I understand your reflections, we as parents have a duty to raise our children pious, so that when they become mothers or fathers, that they are indeed a pathway towards us, to connect to something higher through their guidance and through their feet, right? Through the feet of the mother. What is it to be a mother? I'm just trying to interpretate what you're saying, brother. What is it to be a mother? How can we be a mother or a father, by the way? And I think Futuwwah can help us by embodying the virtues of Futuwwah. Then definitely that brings sacredness into our roles that we take, whether it's the role of the mother or the role of the father or the role of a brother or sister or husband or wife. And then the sacredness comes. And ultimately, then it makes totally sense that paradise is under the feet of the mothers. Now, obviously, everything the Prophet ﷺ says it always makes sense. And then we understand the context within it. It's different between being a good or a bad mother or a good or a bad father, obviously. And that is also something that I think we need to reflect upon. Jazakallah khairan, Akhi Kareem. All right, let's continue reading, inshallah. Let's see. Who would like to read, dear brothers and sisters? Any volunteer? We'll start from here, reflecting on this verse. Anybody?
Yes, I would like to.
All right. Who is speaking?
Mahmouda.
All right, Sister Mahmouda, go ahead.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Reflecting on this verse, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam famously said, "Paradise is under the feet of mothers." In other traditions, Bahas ibn Hakim narrated from his father, who narrated from his grandfather, who
Who
said,
said?
I asked, O Messenger of Allah, who am I to be kindest to the wards? He replied, your mother. I asked, then who? He said, "Your mother?" I asked, "Then who?" He replied, "Your mother." I asked again, "Then who?" He responded, "Your father." Ibn Umar witnessed a Yemeni man making tawaf around the house, the Kaaba, while carrying his mother on his back, while saying, "I am her humble camel. If her mount is scared, I am scared." Then he asked, "O Ibn Umar, do you think I have prepared her?" Ibn Umar said, "No, not even for a single pang of labor." Such is the exalted station of a mother in Islam, that it is reported that Zain al-Abidin said regarding the status of the mother. The right of your mother is that you know that she carried you. When, when no one carries anyone, she fed you the fruit of her heart that no one gives to anyone, and she protected you with her all her organs. She did not care if she went hungry, if you could eat, if she was thirsty, as long as you drank, if she was naked, as long as you were clothed, if she was in the heat of the sun, as long as you were shaded. She gave up sleep for your sake. She protected you from heat and cold, all in order that you might belong to her. You will not be able to show her gratitude unless through God's help and giving success. After the mother, the fatah is to prioritize his father, whom his seed of life began. Moreover, the difference which the father is due is above all the living men. Even if he is a disbeliever, Abu Huraira saw two men together. Then he said to the younger one, "Who is he to you?" The young man responded, "My father." He then told him, "Do not address him by his first name, nor walk in front of him, nor sit down before him."
Jazakallah khairan, sister. Jazakallah khairan for reading in such an excellent manner. Sister Mahmoud, I really appreciate it. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So much gems here. So many gems here. The whole story of the Yemeni man making tawaf around the Kaaba, and they're coming in the conversation with Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu is really interesting in the sense um, that it's not enough. You need to do more for your mother, isn't it? Rahimullah. This is the beauty of the Salaf and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. They have such an excellent conduct. And then obviously Zain al-Abidin, rahimullah, with regards to the status of the mother, it's something that we could try to reflect upon and internalize. And then Imam Dawud goes on to say that after the mother, the fatah needs to prioritize his or her, in the sense of sacred femininity, father, who his or her seed of life began, right? And the respect due towards the father is because he is different than all other men in our life, right? Even when he is a disbeliever, is said here in the text. So a reflection that I would like us to do is actually quite a relevant reflection, dear brothers and sisters, and maybe you guys could try to reflect with me on this. We have a lot of convert brothers and sisters in our communities. I'm sure in your local communities and also in my community, we do have a lot of converts, a lot of brothers and sisters that converted to Islam. Maybe their parents are still disbelievers. May Allah guide them, inshallah. A lot of them feel, difficulties in engaging with their families. So I was thinking when Imam said that we should even have deference towards our father, even if he is a disbeliever, how can we use this quote from Imam Dawud to support our convert brothers and sisters in their relationships with their non-believing fathers and mothers? Any reflections about that? Why I'm mentioning this? Okay, bro, good. Brother Usama, you're here, mashallah. Long time ago, haven't seen you. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Ustad.
Salam, my beloved brother. Nice to see you.
Nice to be here as well. Alhamdulillah, after a long time. After I think 2 sessions, I missed like 2 sessions.
Well, just to miss you 2 sessions, it's like 2 years, brother. Go ahead.
Inshallah. So yeah, with converts and new Muslims, it's a big issue sometimes that they are very emotionally attached with their parents, and sometimes their parents even pass away without accepting Islam. And you can see from the way they talk about it that it is something that bothers them very deeply. Like, we don't understand the value of having Muslim parents sometimes because we were just born into a Muslim family. But for converts, that is all that they could wish for. Like, for them, that is more important than having, everything in the world for their parents to accept Islam. So it's really a very valuable thing, and there are some converts who don't get along with their parents, like if especially if they're from places like India.
Brother Osama, I think we lost you, your connection. I think Brother Osama got some connection issues. I know Brother Osama's work, mashallah, he's doing amazing work in supporting convert brothers and sisters. So, as Brother Osama mentioned, this is something that is a struggle for many converts and also reverts to Islam. My teachers have taught me that converts and reverts, we could differentiate in the sense that converts are people that never had a connection to Islam through their parents. So they converted and they don't have the family structure. While reverts could be a person born Muslim, raised in a Muslim context with parents that might not be that religious, and then they revert back to Islam. So the challenges when it comes to the relationship with the parents might be different according to this way of distinguishing converts and reverts. This is just how my teachers have been teaching me with regards to the differentiation. It doesn't mean that converts and reverts are seen like that. Some people call everybody revert or everybody convert. So that's up to discuss. Nevertheless, to show respect for your father, even if he's a disbeliever, according to this quote, what does that mean? And how can we perhaps guide them to Islam and not be affected by things that might not be according to Qur'an and Sunnah, yet be there to show love and appreciation even to our mothers and fathers, even if they are disbelievers, as a convert? Any thoughts, any reflections? Yes, go ahead. I don't know if it's brother Shahab or sister Shabin. Go ahead.
I want to speak something about it.
Yeah,
Just
go ahead.
speak, we have our duties towards our parents, so we have to fulfill that duty, whatever is parents are believer or non-believer. According to that, if we do it, we are pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then only the Allah will help you to guide, so that we can guide the parents also to the right path. That is best thing, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, mashallah. I agree with you, by the way. And I work as a counselor, and I have a lot of clients that are converts. And that is a struggle that a lot of converts are facing. May Allah make it easy for them. And I really want us as a collective, dear brothers and sisters, to support our converts, brothers and sisters. I know many of you are from India, the blessed country of India. I know a lot of Hindu converts to Islam. They are suffering a lot. I have noticed that. And many of my colleagues in India have told me about that as well. And even here in the West where I live, we do have a lot of converts that are, for instance, here in Sweden, we have a lot of white Swedes who are becoming Muslims, and that's the same in the UK, in Germany, in the US, in Canada, and continental Europe, Australia. I just saw my beloved brother Ahmed's face. MashaAllah, Ahmed, nice to see you, man. So Australia, we have a lot of converts. So essentially, I think to give them compassionate guidance, as you said, Sister Shabina, that we should show respect even to our parents, even if they are not believers. And hopefully with our hearts, we bring them to the deen of fitrah, inshallah, because Islam speaks to everybody's fitrah in the day in the day, and it is integrated in one's fitrah, but then you're disconnected from that witnessing through socialization that took you away from fitrah, which is also what the Prophet said that the parents are those who raise our children into becoming Christians or Jews or Majusi, Zoroastrians. Khair, thank you for these great reflections. I would like us to reflect a little bit about the role of the father as well. The role of the mother obviously is a sacred role, and we love our mothers for the sake of Allah. So let's reflect a little bit about the role of the father. And let's start by reading the last part of the chapter. Who would like to read? Anybody who would like to read, your brothers and sisters?
I can go ahead.
You want to read again, sister? Okay, brother Muhammad wants to, sister Muhammad, because you already read, let's let brother Muhammad
Yes,
read, inshallah.
yes,
Brother
yes,
Muhammad.
yes.
Go ahead, brother Muhammad. Brother Muhammad, you raise your
Shall I
hand.
read?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Alaikum wa
Walaikum
rahmatullah.
assalam, brother. Nice to see you, brother. MashaAllah. Please go ahead.
The right of your father is that you know that he's your root and you are his branch. Without him, you would not be.
You would not be.
Whenever you see anything in yourself that pleases you, you know the Father is the root of this blessing upon you. So praise and thank Allah upon the measure of that. And there is no strength except by Allah. The Prophet ﷺ employed repetition to convey the importance of family, stating, surely Allah advises you regarding your mothers, then advises you regarding your mothers. Then he advises you regarding your fathers. Then he advises regarding your kin, and then your close kin.
MashaAllah. Barakallahu feekum, brother Muhammad. Nice to see you. Thank you all for reading this chapter. Sister Mahmouda, Sister Asfia, everybody else who read. Brother Shoaib, thank you so much for the excellent readings. So yes, let's take the last 10, 15 minutes to reflect upon the role of the father and why the role of the father is sacred as well. So we hear here that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, surely Allah advises you regarding your mothers, then advises you regarding your mothers, then he advises you regarding your fathers. So he is mentioning fathers and close kin as well. So what is the sacred role of the father, dear brothers and sisters? Obviously, there is so much we can speak about here with regards to the sacred role of the father. Let me stop sharing my screen actually, because we have read the final part of the chapter. So let me just start to read in the chat. So in Islam, Sister Sophia is right. Sister Sophia, mashallah, nice to see you, Sister Sophia. Jazakallah khairan, an honor to have you with us. Sister Sophia said, in Islam, the greatest of sin is shirk. Yet even in this circumstance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded people to be kind and respectful to the parents. This brings these two questions. Does a wife have a right to insist that she has to live away from the family of the husband, which can lead to creating distance between the husband and his parents? And can a wife say to her husband that in Islam, it is not my duty to look after your parents? Wow, Sister Sophia, this is a different question. Important one indeed, but it's a different question. Yes. This is about the intermarital relationship between husband and wife, and also the relationship with the larger entity of the family, right? The wider nucleus of the family. It's an important discussion indeed.
I was just trying to connect the two in terms of the shirk with the reverts. And
oh, I see.
And then this other point, because the emphasis of Islam is about and the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the first name, which is the Rahman and Rahim, and Rahman is the root word, is the womb connected with the womanhood. Yet the women themselves who are believers brings this sort of attitude, which I have just come to know in the last 20 years, to be honest. I did not hear my mother ever say that, oh, it is not my duty to look after the in-laws and so on, or any of my, but recently, the new generation, they do say that. So I'm just trying to connect the two concepts here and say, well, look, the highest sin is shirk. But even in that, where the parents are compelling the children not to believe in Islam, the children have a duty still to be kind to their parents.
Yes.
Does that make sense what I'm trying to say here?
Makes sense. It makes sense. It's a
The,
very interesting reflection.
whereas the younger generation of today's ladies in particular say, right, in Islam, we're not, it is not our duty to look after. But what does that mean? I mean, does Islam ever say not to look after an elderly person? Does that negate, just because you're married to an old, married now that this person, old woman or an old man, is now your in-law, you have no right? It's sort of, it's difficult for me to grasp, and seems very illogical as an argument that the women, this new age modern women who are working, are putting forward, and it's I think very divisive. That's anyway my personal take.
It's an interesting question. I think we need a whole session for this, sister, to be quite honest. It's a very interesting, important, yet complex discussion to have. I think there is a lot of things here that you're mentioning that is very relevant to reflect upon. I think there is the whole aspect of modern ties and relationships, and with modernity has come certain ways of living and ways of being that sometimes might create a feeling of dissonance towards perhaps different sacred connections and sacred roles. What do we mean with obedience? What do we define obedience? What entails and the notion of obedience? Is it to be blindly obedient, for instance? I mean, there is something that is disregarded as not good, which is to blindly follow without understanding, right? We shouldn't blindly follow without understanding, which is taqleed. So can that be also in the way that we follow the guidance of our parents or elders? Allahu alam. I don't want to answer that question. That's a thing that we can reflect together. I mean, I'm sure everybody has some reflections here. There is a lot of things that we need to reflect upon ultimately. I was actually thinking myself about the sacred role of the father. So I just want to bring in some inputs from you all, and then I'll share some of my reflections before we end. So yes, let's see here. We have, yes, Sister Mahmouda, go ahead. We only have 10 minutes, so very briefly. Go ahead, Sister Mahmouda.
Okay. Very briefly, what I want to say is what the sister has brought up the point, that's very good point. And yes, there is a question now arising in the new generation. But my question here is, why did that question arise? From where did it come? Why the generation has reached towards that point of saying it so openly that I don't want, I am not responsible for my husband's parents? Have they seen struggles of the earlier generations going through some sort of difficulties? Where this question has arisen? This is
So
what I have been researching from.
I think, Sister Mahmoud, that's a great question to ask. And I think we can, it might be culturally, culturally interpretation of certain religious notions that has not or is not aligned with the religion. It could be. It could be personal experiences that has been quite difficult to handle in the relation between, let's say, the wife and the husband's family. I mean, we have this famous, famous friction in the relationship between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, right? So maybe Allahu alam. It's an interesting reflection to have indeed. Jazakallah khairan. Brother Shoaib, go ahead.
I would like to say that it is necessary or mandatory on man to look after his parents. But this question we can't answer in general, but it depends on culture, area, region, demography. It depends on other things like what is the situation in different region of the world. So we can't answer it in general, but if there is question on a specific question related to a specific person, there might be answer, but in general we can't say anything. Like it could be a research topic for I would say.
Yes, I agree, brother. It could be intergenerational intercultural aspect to it, or cross-cultural aspect, definitely. But it's a very important topic indeed. Thank you, Brother Straight, for your reflections.
And
Yes.
that we need to determine now what are the limits of a girl who leaves home and came to his husband, and
Yeah.
by what limit he need to take care of his husband's parent. So there should be a question.
Definitely. I mean, there is always limits. Our religion discusses and emphasizes balance, right? So definitely, I agree. And sometimes maybe there are things that are put on the shoulder of the wife or the husband, by the way, that might be beyond the limits. And ultimately, who sets the limits, right? Ultimately, the limits is set by Qur'an and Sunnah. Things that contradict Qur'an and Sunnah, we need to neglect. Qur'an and Sunnah always trumps everything. All right, Sister Shabina, please go ahead.
Yes, it's me actually.
Oh, Brother Shahad, go ahead.
She came with this question. I was sitting somewhere else, so she said that. I said, actually, there are a lot of things which, in my opinion, we cannot be categorical about. For example, when we say that how much the responsibility the daughter-in-law has towards her in-laws, so see, there is a term we call as secular. Right now, that secular is a term which means that there are some moral values which we all humans must inculcate in us and use it in our relationships as humans. So when we are not either aware about this secular part, then we tend to become little rigid, because this is part of our following our deen. Because I'm dealing with my own kids, then of course there are kids who are not my own. At the same time, they are not following what I follow as a belief, so but that does not mean that I become discompassionate about them, or I should be compassionate as a human. Then my human thing should work, that it is always dominant, but specifically because we all have we call as cognitive bias, or where we tend to, we like to hear things which goes in our favor. So
Yeah, yeah.
but I think that's where we need to be very real about it. Okay, if it's about relationships, then that is the priority. We are not, but at the same time, it should not, as rightly said, it should not cross the limit set by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
Yeah. Yeah. Barakallahu fikum. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. These are great remarks, great reflection. We need to continue. That's why I love this space, and to share this space with you all, my dear brothers and sisters, is truly a blessing from Allah Azza wa Jal. I'm reading in the chat a little bit. Let me see here. Sister Elena is writing, marriage is handing over a duty from a father to another man who is willing to take care of a woman who a man has chosen to be his wife. On the other hand, the wife is not only married to a man, but also married into his family's member, especially the parents. Likewise, for the man to have duties to the wife's family, communication can be made to agree on how much each can take part in in-laws' well-being. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Great, great statement, dear sister. Then we have, what else? Yeah, we have Sister Arinola is writing, our mothers were mentioned thrice, and then our father, when we are asked who do we love most, and this shows that our mother is highly prioritized, as well as our fathers. We are so therefore meant to be dutiful to them. May Allah ease our affairs. Ameen. All right. So very briefly, with reflection to everything that we say, I mean, I think the role of the father is equally important as the role of the mother. And from the aspect of Futuwwah is to understand the sacred aspects of our roles, right? And that fathers and mothers, we complete each other. We don't compete with one another. Our roles might be different in certain areas and might be same in other areas, but ultimately we are complementary to one another. We don't compete, we complete, which is the essence here. And in that, it's also something we can reflect upon. Maybe we can speak next week about the notion of qawam, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes us as men, and as men we can be fathers or brothers or sons, as qawamun, and protectors, right? Maintainers of women and the family. So in that, it's the wife, it's the daughter, and of course the son and the whole family, and being responsible for providing for your family as a man, and that's part of the notion of qawam. And then if you add to the lens of Futuwwah when it comes to speaking about qawam, we can see that as our ethical framework to start with, that is our duty, that is our fitri and sacred disposition as sacred men, right? And further, qawam as a role should not be seen as something that is connected to superiority, rather as a responsibility that is given to us as men, as fathers, as brothers, to ensure the welfare and the stability of our family, and as a husband for your wife and for your children as well. So it's not superiority; it's actually a responsibility, and with that, it's an amana that is about creating safety and safeguarding the emotional, psychological, physical needs of your family, and that you see that as part of you being an emir, and that is part of being a father. And in that, you need to be compassionate, because if you want to have that role which Allah has given to you, which is connected to qawam, then you need to be emotionally intelligent, and you need to be psychologically intelligent, and you need to be present, right? Of course, you give guidance and you have the responsibility, but you do it with your heart as well. So I think these are all interconnected, and these are all aspects of the sacred role of being a father, for instance. And of course, there are other sacred aspects of being a mother, which we can also find in the stories of the mothers of the believers, when we see how Sayyidina Fatima radiallahu anha, or Sayyidina Maryam alayhi salam, or Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha, their way of being women, for instance. How are they? Why do we call them the mothers of the believers? What can we learn from them and their way of having this sacred role of being? Now, obviously, mothers of the believers is that there are mothers, So why are we using that terminology when we refer to these sacred women of our tradition? Brother Muhammad, you will get the last remark before we end today. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum again.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Muhammad.
All right, so a quick point. Oftentimes when we talk about وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, and be nice and kind to your parents, a lot of people come up and say, well, these are very ideal things, and they are really interesting, and I really value them, and I really appreciate those ayahs and verses and hadiths. But here is the thing. They cannot, or practically it is not very much possible for me to actually apply these things to my parents, because you don't know them. They're very different. They have a very different personalities, and they might not always seem ideal. They think very differently from from us. And kind of, you don't know my parents, just like that. It's possible for others, but when it comes to my parents, my father, he is a very different, very difficult person, and you cannot deal with him with patience. And I think that's where I find it very interesting. And I mean, it's kind of almost funny because the thing is, because the very need to be patient, to be kind with them, actually arises from their demand for it. I mean, if parents are always kind, soft-hearted, loving, caring, pleasing, then the question is, why would we need patience? Because patience, by definition, is required in times of distress, in times of difficulty. When things are not going in your direction, that's when you need patience. So if parents were like perfect, an ideal one, then we don't need that. There's no possibility. We cannot even imagine. Patience would not even be necessary. So I think we have to be mindful that we don't need umbrella when it's not raining. We need umbrella when it's raining. We need light when it's darkness. So like that, when people are difficult, that's actually when we need وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, and so on. So we have to kind of remind ourselves it's very much possible, and it is actually the demand. The second point that I want to quickly put across is that a lot of times the clash between, or the problem or the conflict between parents and sons and daughters, obviously, are not rooted in religion or spiritual matter. it is essentially because of their, what should I say, their communication style. Rather, we can say it psychologically. I mean, how we communicate with the people, with the parents, and how parents communicate with us. So I think as a parents, we need to learn how to communicate with the child so that they actually hear us. And as a child, and as a daughter, and as a son, we need to learn how to persuade our parents, how to convince them, how to put across our clients, how to talk to them nicely, and how to make things work. So we don't realize that there might be something wrong with how we communicate. I mean, that's a very basic thing I know, which is why we do not talk about it. We do not learn how to communicate. That's a very, I would say, a very basic problem that we have. We as a parent and we as a child, we don't care about those stuff. We think things that are very black and white stuff. You know, parents are bad or they are good, but that's not true. A person can be bad, but you can talk to them with a greater style of communication and you can turn them into a good person, and the vice versa. A person might be very good, but because of your communication style and how you talk to them can actually end up making that person worse for you. So I think it's we have to understand it's not always, you know, religious thing. It's not always spiritual thing, but it's also a basic, you know, psychological thing like communication and how we talk to them. What kind of word choice do we have? What kind of communication style are we choosing? And so on, which is why I think it's very important that it's a part of the program. It's a part of the, what should I call it? Like an education system, learning how to communicate. That's actually all. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair.
Amazing reflections, and I agree. And I think it's you wrapped up our whole session today in an excellent manner. I mean, Allah bless you, dear brother. Communication is key for sure, and that's something we need to work on. How do we communicate? How do we listen? What is attentive listening? What is communication with the heart? Right? Which tone do we use? Which frequency do we use? Which pitch do we use? Which content do we use? Do we use I messaging or we messaging or you messaging? You know, which tonality do we use? You know, you can say the same thing, and it's not the issue of the content; it's the way you conceptualize it when you speak. And then suddenly, something that has good content could sound very bad, or maybe will not reach the heart of the counterpart if it's not communicated in a certain way. You know. So these are all very important things that you mentioned. So thank you, brother. We need to wrap up now, brothers and sisters. We're over time. Thank you so much for giving out of your precious time, dear brothers and sisters. It's always an honor to be with you all. I learned so much by listening to all of your excellent remarks and reflections. Please continue the discussion in the WhatsApp group. We will open up soon, the WhatsApp group. And I would love if more people discuss in the WhatsApp group because we learn so much through our interaction with one another. So next week, next Sunday, the new time is 8:30 a.m. GMT, 8:30 a.m. GMT. And that's 8:30 a.m. UK time, by the way, because Europe has changed time. We're going into so-called winter time. So 8:30 a.m. GMT next Sunday, we will read the chapter about how to show respect towards your teachers and the shuyukh and the scholars. So the next chapter. So we'll see each other next week. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for giving out of your precious time. And please forgive me for any shortcomings from my side. And I want to thank Brother Shaib and Sister Fatima, Sister Dani, and Sister Medea for facilitating the whole halaqah in such an excellent manner as well. Jazakallah khairan, everybody. I wish you all a great continuation of the day, inshallah. See you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.